Let me introduce the next company by saying many eons ago I was a math major, and so I'm particularly impressed by this startup that seems to be filled with PhDs in math. Um, and
I'm
they,
not a PhD in math.
well, you're something like, wasn't it something like that? I mean, a lot of math.
Many of us are.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also applying math in multiple applications, including mobility, but in ways that seem really hard to me because, as I recall from my math days many years ago, to solve one variable's, doable. To solve two variables is harder. To solve many variables, let alone infinite variables, is really hard to optimize that. And that's essentially, as I understand what this company does, it optimizes for results against many variables, if not uncountable variables. So that's a cryptic way to introduce your company, Anna, but I hope that'll suffice. So you want to take it away from here?
Yeah, I would. I'd love to. And I think that is a sort of a perfect segue into what we do at Mobi. So our tagline as a business is solving seemingly intractable human problems for travel, transport, and hospitality. And when we say seemingly intractable human problems, what we really mean is understanding who a person is in place and time, and understanding what a place is in place and time. And if you think about the billions of people on the planet at this point and how unique each of us is, and the millions of things or billions of things at this point that we've built and how unique each of those is, understanding how to fit those two together can be a really hard problem. But one of the things that we've learned, I was listening recently to Salman Rushdie talk about creating story. And he said, when you introduce a character, if they have green hair, don't hide that till page 150, like show that up front. So one of the things that we've learned with this company is, while people are unpredictable, once you find the thing about them that is unique, that uniqueness is pretty predictable. And the same is true of place. So places are tremendously varied and unique, but once you find the thing that's special about it, that thing that is special is pretty predictable and reliable. As a business, when we started entirely in the mobility space. So it's nice to be back at a conference that is mobility focused. The very first thing that we did back in 2013, so a while ago, is we merged all ground modes. So transit, bike, bus, train, walking, driving, parking, anything that had to do with how you moved, we turned that into one seamless network. But we did it with an underlying constraint-based, risk-aware planning solution to do that intermodal routing. And what we learned pretty quickly was that how you chose to move depended on what you wanted to do. So like a simple example is if you wanted to go to IKEA and get a bed, the right transportation solution in that moment in time was different than if you were walking to a friend's. And that for us, the coupled problem, the problem of not just how you move, but actually what you're doing, was the much more interesting one, and the one that tied who the person was to place. And also as a company that opened our, spectrum of customers up to a much broader set. So today we work B2B across not just mobility, not just fleet operators, but also with theme parks, with crews, with OTAs, with hotel groups, basically anyone that you could count as a host of a customer while they travel. And my personal hope with the business is that over time, we'll slowly be able to bring it back into our daily lives. So most of our customers and most of the projects that we deploy have to do with a traveler in some way, shape, or form. But at the end of the day, right, most of our movement is habitual, and it connects us to our local communities. So yeah, hopefully we'll get back to those roots in some number of years. In terms of what we do as a business, we offer a platform that we call MAPS, so multi-activity planning and scheduling. It has 3 core components. So the first is a spatial temporal profile of an individual. It can come from historical data, it can come from explicit interaction with the person through a UI, but really understanding that we have machine learning AI techniques, big data techniques to process historical information. But at the end of the day, the person is their own supercomputer and has living, breathing insight into who they are, what they want, when they want it, where they want it, how much they want to pay. And if we can ask in place and time that ask the right questions, that we'll have a much richer understanding of the individual. The second core piece of the platform is basically a collection of microservices that power what we'd count as next generation digital interaction. So if you think about what digital tools do today, on the one hand, they're extraordinary, right? We have like the computational power that got us to the moon in our cell phones. But on the other hand, they're still young, they're nascent technologies. And so our aim is to help the companies that are in travel, transport, hospitality, who for the most part are not necessarily digital, right? They've spent usually millions or billions of dollars building vehicles or building hotels or building infrastructure to operate hotels or theme parks or ships. And our aim is always to say your digital tools and technology should have the same nuance and sophistication that any of those physical assets have. It is in some ways, right? Like the touch, I could almost touch my screen. It's like the touch interface between you and your customer. And it should have the same polish that everything else you've built and everything else you sell, usually for huge quantities of dollars, has. And then the third piece, so, and I'll show an example of sort of how these come together in a second, but the third piece is a property or asset level optimization capability. So as we understand who is the customer or who is the traveler, as we build out tools to interact with them, to build trips, to build plans or itineraries, all of a sudden we have the ability to turn this group of people into a team that's acting effectively on behalf, not just of themselves, but on each other and of the business. So if we went back one view, you could imagine, for example, for a theme park, right, at a network level, the goal is you want to minimize the wait time and you want to maximize the number of experiences. If you're thinking about a cruise, there's an onboarding, offboarding, import component. If you're thinking about a hotel, that's a physical asset that has constraints. If you're thinking about being a fleet operator, whether it's a traditional rental car type use case or autonomous future use case, you want to understand what do all of your customers need, want, and place and time, and how do I most effectively keep all of my vehicles moving to meet all of their needs and requirements, pre-position them so they're never still, they're always maintained, they're always fueled, they're always ready, and they're always responsive. How do I get the most from them? And the underlying power in the platform is that in that sort of single agent routing planning capability that we built for digital, it actually wraps up to a multi-agent optimization problem. That's where the core of our technology really lives. As a company, in terms of where we are, we have tried to be really thoughtful about the companies that we worked with early on. Today, we have customers that are the vertical leader in 6 of the 9 verticals that we work in. Our entire platform is licensed globally. If you look at some of the problems we solve, using even a traditional supercomputer could take upwards of a week, and we have the computation speeds down under 100 milliseconds. It took us about 7 years to get there. And our customers have more than 600 million end customers. So we're proud of all 4 of those pieces of the business. What I wanted to show next is one of the oldest things in our company. It's a little video, but I think it explains in kind of a cheeky way what we do and how routing and planning and understanding who the person is and what they're looking for, how all of those pieces come together. So this is one of, the very, very first prototypes that we built. And I'll just play the video. It has subtitles. When we did a test before, the sound came through pretty well. So hopefully everybody can hear it.
Korean restaurant for 20 minutes.
And I'll just start it over.
This is Uhura. How may I help you?
This is our CTO talking
Take
with
me
the
to
system.
a Korean restaurant for 20 minutes.
Okay, anything else?
I need to arrive at Logan Airport by 7 p.m.
Got it. Anything else?
Stop at the flower shop for 5 minutes.
Okay, going to flower shop for 5 minutes. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, you can go to Kendall Flower Shop and Koreana. However, you need to shift leave home at 1800 hours to 1754. Sounds good?
No, I cannot leave earlier than 6 p.m.
Okay, I have found another plan for you. There is 29.4% risk that you will not arrive on time. Sounds good?
No, I cannot take more than 5% risk.
Okay, I have found another plan for you. You can go to Kendall Flower Shop and China House. However, you need to relax the cuisine requirement for Korean restaurant to Chinese. Is it okay?
That's fine.
Okay, have a nice trip.
Okay, so that's the end of that little video. And obviously a lot of the interactions, that's from at least 6 years ago. So a lot of the interactions in that have gotten smoother, obviously, like the flow. We don't usually surface risk as a parameter. But you can see as the problem is constructed, you can sort of see the problem domain in that video, which I really like. You can see the POI selection, which is part of our underlying technology, right? How do you know when someone asks for something, where you can find an answer to that request that is of a high quality? And that's really mapping all the global POIs and their characteristics. You can hear questions from the person, constraints that they care about. And so for us, building a model where someone could, in a natural way, whether it's through UI or chat, express what they're looking for, and we could understand and then code that, and then turning that into a plan, whether it's that little plan there, right? I'm just going to the airport to pick my person up, or it's a full multi-day, trip plan to some far distant part of the world. Or the concurrent plan for 60 or 100,000 people that are all in one place at one time. I think it's probably the cleanest representation of sort of who we are and the problems that we work on. So yeah, I can stop there and we can open for questions. I want to be respectful of the time.
Yeah, and we're starting around out of time, but I have a lot of questions. I'm sure others have too. Let me just start out by asking a quick question. So, there's so many possible applications that come to mind for what you have created. What does this look like at scale? I mean, it sounds like you're well past POCs for all these major clients, but I'm sure there's a lot of room for you to grow beyond that too. So what does it look like at scale? I mean, what do you look like as a big company? What are you doing around the world of business and the economy generally?
Yeah, I think that was one of the most exciting, when we did our very first seed round. One of the things that I loved the most about that round is we built out the architecture when we did our TAM for every possible vertical. So we did it working with the OEMs, working with autonomous, looking at business travel, looking at leisure travel, looking at disaster response and planning in response to disasters, right? And all of them, right, there's billions of dollars of opportunity to solve these types of routing planning problems in each of them. And the most exciting thing was the underlying architecture to solve each of those problems was the same. The thing that was different was the input, right, the data types that came for each context, and the interface out. So and in some cases, the scope, right? Is it this type of micro plan that we showed just going to the airport, or is it a many day plan? Is it really like no pre-planning, just a hurricane's coming, right? And like, how do we manage resource allocation and planning for disaster response? or it's a known problem, right? It's Disney World, you know exactly where the rides are, you don't know where the people are. So what is known and what is unknown, those things vary. But the underlying approach to the problem was very, very consistent. And so in the long term, when I've thought about the business, the model that I like the most is probably George Hatsopoulos' thermoelectron model, where we have a core business and there's effectively a spin out variant that allows a team to specialize, for example, right, in the disaster response, right, that could be an entity in and of itself that's licensing the technology and focused on that problem. So I think we'll become like a collection of companies over time.
And it's also, given the fact that you are now in many different companies already and different verticals, I just wonder if there is if the clients allow you to let your different pieces talk to each other, whether there might be some kind of network synergy effect there where you could actually, and of course it helps build your moat as well.
Yeah.
But is that possible or in your roadmap?
Yeah, so that was one of the things that I didn't anticipate, sort of horizontal transfer. If you think about like when we work with a luxury hotelier, the details or the precision that we add to the system to solve, right, the types of problems that need to get solved there, when you pull them back and then put them, for example, in a business travel context, are really powerful. Or, you know, if you think about travel as like discovery, and then you think about the complexity of your home city and day-to-day life, right? If we can pull and transfer some of that back into how you might interact with your personal vehicle or interact with autonomous in the future, or even shop locally. So yeah, there's tons of horizontal knowledge transfer, but it's been a mixed bag on whether companies have wanted to participate in that, whether they were comfortable transferring insights to anyone who was non-competitive or not. And we don't pressure anybody we work with to we're very clear that each company's data is their data and the learning off of it is theirs.
Yeah, terrific. Well, super fascinating. Congratulations on all the progress you've made. That's terrific. I was speculating with Anna when we first spoke that she could be like Microsoft. She does her Series A round and then that's it. She doesn't need to do anything more. But anyway, we've got to move on.